When my father left the nation and converted to Orthodox Islam, my mother converted too. Together, they deepened their study of the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. They realized that what they knew of as Islam from the teachings of Elijah Muhammad was really a stew of Orthodox Islam, black nationalism, fanciful science, and fanciful history. They decided to pursue the Islam practiced by billions of people all over the world and become Sunni Muslims. The basic creed of Islam is brief. There is no God but Allah, who is compassionate and just, and Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. Islam means surrender or submission. Muslims are those who have submitted themselves to the will of God in the name of peace and accept and proclaim the oneness of God. When my father was assassinated, some people might have expected my mother to return to the Christian faith of her youth. Instead, she moved deeper into the faith of her choice. My mother was a devout Muslim. Not many people realize that because she was extremely private about her faith. She did not proselytize. She did not wear the hijab, the traditional head covering, in her everyday life, though she dressed modestly, as the Quran instructs, and was always appropriately covered in the mosque. My mother insisted on approaching Islam in a conservative manner. She did not believe Islam required women to be passive creatures locked away in a house somewhere. She believed she had the support of her religion in doing what she had to do, go out into the world and achieve for herself and for the sake of her family, just as millions of Muslims around the world do. And as she did so, she strove to fulfill the 5 pillars of Islam. She was conscious of Allah, she prayed, she fasted, she made Hajj, and she gave generously to individuals and to charity. I cannot count the number of stories I've heard about my mother leaving an envelope full of cash with someone in need or a bag of clothes or goods with someone else. Mommy was also modest. She was a good person, and she stood up for her beliefs. She kept the Quran in a place of honor and reference in our home. Islam was a shining, powerful force that sustained my mother through the darkest periods of her life, and she wanted her daughters to grow up with that same sustenance. So every Sunday, rain or shine, we went to the mosque. It didn't matter what we'd done the night before. Spent Saturday busy with lessons, going to someone's party, or stayed up late watching movies on television. It didn't matter if we clung to our blankets and moaned and begged and whined to stay home. Please, Mommy, please, just this once. It didn't matter at all. My mother didn't even argue with us. That we were going to the mosque was just understood. She would rise and set about making oatmeal in the kitchen, while the 6 of us dressed and combed our hair. As required, we dressed modestly and conservatively. Ankle-length skirts, pants or dresses, loose blouses, coverings for our heads. When we were very young, we would be driven into New York, often in a limousine. I'm sure some people at the mosque saw us piling out of that limo and thought we were rich, but during those first years after my father was assassinated, my mother was understandably cautious about driving herself and her 6 children into the city alone. Later, as years passed and fears eased, we would simply pile into my mother's car for the trip to the mosque. We all had our assigned seats. Malak and I sat up front with my mother. Since I was older than Malak, the window was mine. Kubila had the driver's side window in the back, and Atala claimed the other window, with Gamila and Malika in between. We attended the mosque at the Islamic Center, first on West 72nd Street and Riverside Drive, and later, when the community moved, at East 97th Street and 3rd Avenue. The congregation was mostly foreign-born people from the Sudan, Ethiopia, Somalia, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Egypt, the Philippines, or elsewhere in the world who had come to New York seeking a better life like so many immigrants before them. Our family was one of only a handful of African Americans who belonged to the mosque, but it was never an issue for us or anyone else that we knew of. True Islam teaches the brotherhood of all people, and that's the way my mother genuinely raised us. The first thing we did when we arrived at the mosque was to remove our shoes and head upstairs to Quranic studies, a kind of Sunday school for Muslims. For the first hour of class, we studied the Quran. In the second hour, we learned how to read, write, and understand Arabic. At 12:30 p.m., we were allowed a break, especially if we were going to be at the mosque the whole day. We'd burst forth from the doors like wild horses unleashed and race across the street to the park or up to the corner store for candy. My mother, as a rule, did not allow us to have much candy. Being a nurse and a Muslim, she was extremely health conscious and carefully monitored what we ate. But on Sundays, we could sometimes sneak a few pieces of candy from the store. After the break, the muezzin would sound the call, and we would head back inside to perform our cleansing before beginning congregational prayer. Prayer began with the Imam, our prayer leader, standing at the front of the mosque facing toward Mecca, the holy city of Islam. We all lined up in rows behind him, men in front, women behind them, and children at the back. We tried as hard as we could to concentrate on the service, but as the prayers went on and on, standing, kneeling, lying, prostrate, we sometimes let our attention wander. One thing I know, It's hard to be a child facing row upon row of bare adult feet with their accumulated bunions and corns and stubby toes and not giggle a little bit. After mosque, my mother would take us out to eat. This, for me, was the best part of the day. New York was and is a smorgasbord of possibilities, and my mother wanted us to sample as many as possible. We might have bagels and lox in a deli on the Upper West Side, dim sum in Chinatown, or dinner at an Indian or Ethiopian restaurant. After eating, if it was still early enough, she would take us to a concert or to Broadway to see a play. Now, of course, I understand that she wanted us exposed to the world of fine arts, wanted us to learn to appreciate theater and performance and music of all kinds. And I enjoyed some of the cultural events. I loved seeing the beautiful dancers and the Alvin Ailey Company fly their way across the stage. I liked the circus, and I enjoyed magic shows. I liked musicals. I remember seeing The Wiz and feeling exhilarated by the soulful music and energetic dancing. And plays could also be interesting, though once, when I was 8 or 9, we went to see the River Niger. I remember having only a vague idea of what was going on. There was lots of cursing and sexual grunts, and after a while, my mother simply stood up and led us from the theater. We looked like ducklings, the 6 of us, dutifully following our mother duck all in a line. Poor Atala must have been about 13 and so tall and terribly embarrassed. But I was just as happy not to have to sit and listen anymore. Classical music was the hardest of all. I just didn't have the musical sophistication to appreciate it. It was so much boring, if pretty noise to me. I would have been happier just playing in our backyard. I would fidget in my seat, stare up at the glass chandeliers, shove my sister's elbow from the shared armrest, search the other faces in the audience, look pleadingly back up at whatever action was occurring on stage, all the while silently begging whoever controls such things to let the torture end. How much longer is this going to last? Going to the mosque every Sunday was such a routine part of our life that it never occurred to me that it was different in some ways from what most of my friends did on that day. When I was older, my friends asked why I prayed to Allah instead of God. I had to tell them that Allah was simply the Arabic word for God, that Allah is God, and then I realized we were something of a minority in this regard. But it was a good minority, an abundant one, because we could attend and enjoy both mosque and church, whereas most of my friends only attended church. My sisters and I all took our cue from Mommy, who, although a devout Muslim, never stressed the differences between Islam and Christianity, especially not among friends and family. As the Reverend Willie Barrow wrote, my mother used to say to her, "Girl, don't start talking to me about these sects and orders. Yeah, I'm a Muslim and you're a Church of God, but I'm going to the same place you're going.